Well, it's Friday the 10th of April. Good Friday. I hope those in the UK under lockdown managed to spend some government-mandated exercise time outside this weekend. The quiet streets make the sun so much brighter in these interesting times. This is episode 2014 of 301 Permanently Moved.online, a personal podcast 301 seconds in length, written, recorded, and edited in 1 hour by me, at the JMO. First of all, thank you so much to everyone who dropped me a line in the last week with nice comments, feedback about last week's episode on the bleep. To answer one question, I recorded the bleep in the hallway outside my flat's door, so it isn't quite that clear in our house, except during the dead of night. Earlier today, I posted a 5,000 word long post on my blog titled Craving, Canon, link in the show notes. I explore canon, toxic fandom, solar punk, narrative, cultural fracking, and other problems that I perceive in story worlds in 2020. Do check it out. I spent most of the week writing it. I think it's an interesting discussion and would like to hear other people's thoughts, but only via non-social medium, please. And ain't nobody got time for a hell thread on Twitter. One of the things that I alluded to in the piece was that people craving stories and appealing to higher authorities, i.e. the franchise owner, has deep roots in our culture. Specifically, in my mind, Protestantism. However secular it may think itself, Western society is deeply influenced by its nearly 2 millennia of Christianity. Many years ago, I used to work alongside an Atheist Boomer, who was the sort of insufferable fellow who'd get upset if someone said "bless you" after he sneezed. One day, he said something about the blind leading the blind, and I replied, "You do know that's from the Gospel of Matthew, right?" And he went ballistic. Either I caught him at his own stupid game, or had made him feel like a hypocrite. Either way, it's illustrative. After the stars, see episode 1926 on ritual and storytelling, Christianity is the other dominant story form we have in the West, and like the stars, we all participate in it. Some parts of the Christian story, like the blind leading the blind, are so ingrained in our culture, unless you know, you have no idea. Now this is a fairly recent phenomena. Even 50 years ago, I suspect everyone would have known that the wolf in sheep's clothing is also from Matthew, or rise and shine is from Isaiah, or that the powers that be comes from Romans 13. But friends who didn't grow up religious certainly don't. All of the useful parables, moral and emotional, that the biblical stories contain are unknown to them. So when these same themes show up in movies, they miss them too. I mean, there's nothing subtle about Ripley's Christ-like attributes in Aliens 3. She falls from the heavens to help the prisoners, they deny her role as their saviour, and then she sacrifices her life to save theirs. She even does it with her arms out, for goodness sake. And when I finally watched Frozen last year, it's one of the most Christian movies that I'd ever seen. Like Satan, Elsa craves freedom, cast out and creates a frozen hellscape. And her little sister is a Christ-like redeemer who is wounded for Elsa's sins, then freezes to death to save her sister, and then gets resurrected. There's nothing subtle about that either. The thing that really interests me about Christianity and our culture is just how late the quote-unquote canon comes into existence. Early Christianity is my favourite. Books are the hot technology. The cool thing about the early church is that it wasn't so much as unified as a collection of communities all over the Roman Empire, all working from their own set of books, which of course means that the first quarrels about doctrinal unity, or rather canon, become intense around the 3rd century. Because Christianity has an eschatology, see episode 2006 on clock time versus plot time, it emerges with a sense of history, and as a formalized religion, it relies on the books that recorded that history. The stories of Jesus and his disciples are central to the project. Judaism is also vital to early Christianity, but it was very much an open question in the early days which elements would be integrated with the new doctrine and what should be left behind. See Paul's letters on circumcision and seating arrangements during shared meals, for example. Gordon White is fond of calling the materials in the Dead Sea Scrolls Jesus fan fiction. I mean, in the Gospel of Mary, you have Jesus speaking to Mary directly in a vision, explaining a spiritual path back to him. It's wild stuff, and yet the process outlined is not unlike St. T's interior castle. Two of the Gospels themselves seem to be derived from the mysterious Q source, probably taken from the early Christian church's oral tradition, but after 300 years of fanfiction and world building, those in authority thought that something had to be done. If you're a nerd like me, then you'll know that the Nicene Creed was formalized in AD 325, essentially excluding all the Gnostic fanfiction weirdos, and the first Catholic canon was fixed at the Council of Rome in 382. And everybody was happy. Rough consensus and running code. Things get a little wobbly with the Athanasian Creed in the 5th century, ultimately resulting 500 years later with the Orthodox Church rage quitting, having enough of that toxic fandom. Modern fictional worlds that are loved by millions but controlled by one single authority produce the urge of craving canon, because it reproduces the effects of the most recent change to our collective cultural story world. They skip the messy first 300 years of early Christianity, ignore the next 1,000, and go straight to a Protestant position that the highest authority is the material alone.